little bit of an experiment here this morning trying to make all of this work. So just bear with us for a minute. It's a work in progress.
Since 2019, Sci-Fi for Me has been bringing you news and opinion from all over the web. Science fiction, fantasy, and horror have been on our radar from the beginning. News, rumors, we bring you the latest with our team coverage. Streaming original content every week. Good Morning Multiverse, live on Sci-Fi for Me TV, delivering the multiverse since 2009.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the party. My name is Jason Hunt.
And I'm Timothy Harvey.
Yeah, that was your cue. I had a thought today, and I'm not sure what to think of this thought, but I had a thought today.
You're thinking a thought about your thought?
Yeah.
And it's thoughts all the way
We
down.
are. Let's see. We're in August now. September, October, November. We are 4 months away from this show's 10th anniversary. Can you imagine? We've been doing this for 10 years.
Yes. Yes, I can. That's not a bad thing.
Oh my goodness! It's just like, oh wait, that's this year, isn't it? I don't know what made me think of it, but I thought, yeah, we've been doing this for 10 years now.
Yeah, I mean, time zips past.
It does.
It really, really does.
It really does. Ugh. All right, so in order to celebrate, we're gonna plan early. We're not gonna do the musical episode. We're not gonna do the Milli Vanilli Shuffle episode or anything like that. But I have an idea. Let me run this past you. Okay, so on Good Morning Multiverse, we had an interview with Andy Bellage, who's got the Indiegogo project that he's doing right now for Mother Trucker, right? And he, in the course of the interview, he mentions Darwin Cook. He was a friend with Darwin. He's a friend to Jimmy Palmiotti. And I had just finished reading New Frontier by Darwin Cook.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, they've done an animated picture. Fairly well crafted, and it's done.
I thought it was a good adaptation.
But I thought to myself, since I own the book, we could do a 10-episode live action series adapting this book, because here I got the book right here in my hand.
You physically have it.
We could adapt New Frontier by Darwin Cook into a 10-episode series, live action, and then just I mean, DC's not doing anything with it. And
right?
Who knows what David Zaslav's going to end up doing with everything? I mean, he could kill off DC Comics altogether by the time all this is done. But I've got the book right here. I bought it with my own money.
May I make a recommendation? Perhaps one should consult with a copyright attorney.
Maybe.
As opposed to the folks over at the Spice DAO, which was originally the Dune DAO. Spice. I'm sorry, there's Spice Club now. Spice Club.
Spice Club.
It sounds like a completely different line of business.
Right? There's 5 girls, and they all. Okay, never mind.
Either that, or there's a cover charge and a drink minimum, and the girls preferred in bill form.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's what it sounds like. Yeah. So back. All right, folks. I think you may have caught earlier shows on the subjects of crypto and NFTs and um, Web3 and things like that have come up. It may have come across that I don't think much of any of this stuff, and that's because I don't think much of any of this stuff.
Right. I don't either.
And it's admittedly, if you got into crypto early on, it's entirely possible you made a lot of money.
Well, we know Chris Bilsma has dabbled in it a little bit, and
Yeah, I mean,
he made a little bit, I guess.
There are folks who have made a lot of money in it. There are also folks who have lost far more money, amounts of money. In fact, there's currently a website called Web3 is going great, and they have a running total of the amount of money that has basically gone up in smoke due to rug pulls and just poorly managed. Turns out that unregulated financial systems have downsides. And if you lose your money, you don't have any way to get it back. I mean, I don't know who couldn't have seen that coming, but
right.
Yeah, Web3 is just going just great. It is a very entertaining site. If you are like me and don't think much of this stuff, it's entertaining to just kind of watch this giant train wreck unfold. If it is something that you are very interested in and you think is got potential, it's also worthwhile to look at, because buyer beware. Do your research, figure out where the pros and cons of things are.
Yeah.
It's good to know where the risks fall in something like this. It's a brand new technological world. That's the idea of Web3, right? It's supposed to be the next step in the internet. It's supposed to be more of a egalitarian, less run by the big corporations. There's some not bad ideas here.
Right.
However, making a not bad idea into a reality, not always a thing that can go smoothly.
I'm getting a note from our official program observer. I'm getting a pop-up here. YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, so we might pixelate a little bit, might buffer a little bit. And Mrs.
I
Boss
can see us over there. We're moving around.
Mrs. Boss says your audio is chopping up quite a bit.
My audio, okay.
Yeah,
well, let's try
that little popping in the mic that we've had that problem before.
Yeah.
So
periodically. One has to try and reconnect the mic and see if maybe we have results. So hopefully that helps.
All right, let me adjust here. I think maybe.
Hopefully. Maybe. Possibly.
We're getting there. All right.
Okay.
All right. let's see how long it goes.
Once more with feeling, right?
Yeah, I don't think it helped very much, but anyway, all right. So let's continue.
Right. So we've talked about Jodorowsky's Dune before.
Yeah.
It is a great documentary. Fantastic documentary about the attempt to make this film, which I think the best thing that happened is that it did not get made. This is a much more interesting story than if it had actually gone to screen, because we're talking a 10-hour movie that nobody would have sat through.
Yeah.
And could have conceivably killed the idea of a Dune adaptation for decades. And it would have not been a faithful adaptation. Jodorowsky basically was very clear he was not looking to make a faithful adaptation anyway.
Right.
So, I mean, so it wouldn't, if you were a fan of Dune, you would not be getting what you wanted. If you were and probably had the consequence of not getting the risk of an adaptation. Now a 10-hour adaptation of something that's a season on Netflix or, Amazon Prime or wherever.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, a 10-hour Dune adaptation Yeah, okay. I mean, that's
I mean, sci-fi tried it.
yeah, and quite frankly, I think that for their time and effort, I enjoyed the sci-fi adaptations. I
Yeah.
own them. Um, I think they're a very interesting attempt to deal with some complicated effect requirements. Um, and for their budgets, they did pretty well. Um, and had a pretty solid cast. But Jodorowsky's Dune did not get made. What did get made were about 20-25 Dune Bibles. And these are hundreds of pages of just production art, storyboards, sketches, notes, all kinds of just amazing stuff. It's a beautifully impressive uh, collection of what every TV and film production builds something like this.
Right.
So basic, this is where you have the costume designs and you have the concepts that you are going to build the world that your story is taking place in, whether it's science fiction or a mystery show or a romantic comedy. Somebody's got a list somewhere of here are the rules of the thing that we are making.
Yeah.
And when you get into something like science fiction and fantasy, you obviously have you're creating a universe that is different than the one you're in. So you have these just amazing sketches and very much if you're thinking, 1960s, 1970s fashion, if that's your thing, then you're going to find it. But also some fantastic production design in terms of ship art, set design. You had people. I mean, the potential people involved in this. Pink Floyd doing the soundtrack. Salvador Dali playing the Emperor of Known Space. I mean, we're looking at this thing would have been insane.
And the designs. I mean, you've got Mobius involved. You've got H.R. Giger, who went on to design the Alien, the Xenomorph for Alien, and that group. So yeah, I mean, the amount of talent that's attached to this thing, if it had gone forward, it certainly would have been an interesting visual experience. I'm sure audio visual experience. I mean, when you got Pink Floyd in there, I mean, this is after. I want to say this is after The Wall, right?
I think it might actually be before, but I'm not sure. It's it would have been an amazing train wreck, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it's the best thing that happened for Dune fans and for Jodorowsky is that he didn't get his Dune made.
Right.
Because the documentary is fantastic. And it's fascinating. ABBA and Queen for the soundtrack. Yeah, I don't know that ABBA, Queen, and Pink Floyd all blend together well, but I'm game.
Yeah, Emma says.
You know what?
Giving
so
it has
I think
a
a lot of this
Barbarella
stuff.
feel.
Hmm?
Emma says it has a Barbarella feel.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain period of time here where you're looking at a lot of this production design that it's heavily influenced by a lot of French designers like Mobius and things like that, and you got Barbarella, of course, comes out of that school of art in the comic strips, and therefore that's the kind of feel you get when you get the film adaptation. And it was kind of that period of time. There was a lot of this. I have. Was it Omni? Yeah, it was Omni magazine. I have I've got several old issues in a box around here, and a lot of the artwork you would see in the early '80s for Omni magazine was this kind of artwork. It was this kind of it was, you could tell it was heavily influenced by this whole school of thought, especially in starship design. Some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And some things it's like, that's a wildly impractical starship. Why would you build that? But it looks cool. The cover of the ship on the cover of the Dune Bible. You look at it and go, okay, explain that to me. But
it looks like a couple of Chinese finger puzzles.
It kind of does. It also looks
attached
like what
to
would happen if you were to take like the Romulan warbird and then try and graft the Enterprise nacelles on top and
Right.
flip it around.
Right.
I mean, it looks kind of like a hodgepodge, but it's, you know, it's still it's a fascinating design. There's a lot of really interesting things visually happening with the Dune Bible. Um, Jodorowsky's vision for the story would definitely be a unique vision, and it would have been a very interesting thing to see. I'm glad it didn't happen. Fast forward to earlier this year. And I mean earlier, I mean like January.
Well, actually, it was earlier than that because it was in November when it was up for auction at Christie's.
True. So, yeah, and it goes up for auction for its generally expected price, which is not what it ended up going for.
No.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Now when you go to try and get something at an auction, you know, there's a set price where the bidding begins. And there's sort of this expectation, and you can see it up there on the screen, 25,000 to 35,000 euros.
Right.
That's expensive
right
for a book. There's no question. That's a pricey volume right there. But it's rare, and of course, rarity makes things more valuable. That's how it works. That's not what it sold for.
Oh. It
sold for 2.66 million euros. You may notice there's a slight inflation in the price.
Yes. Well, and they even bragged about it over here on Twitter, and they said, "Hey, we won the auction for 2.66 million." And I'm like, "Why would you spend that much?"
Well, and the best part is that now our mission is to.
I know.
And here's where anybody I mean, if you had not heard of this yet, if this was something that was, you know, you didn't, you know, I don't follow what's being auctioned at Christie's generally. Yeah. I mean, there's you and I have talked about stuff on Good Morning Multiverse that's up for sale where it's genre stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we talked about that. We both had news stories where it's like, this is going up for auction. It's a cool thing. You can get Jason's mask or, you know, Freddy's glove, and this is the original prop, and it's like, you know, $25,000 or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, this is a relevant news story to genre fans, this auction. But it also kind of slipped past me. I didn't particularly notice. But then they say, we're going to make the book public to the extent permitted by law, produce an original animated limited series inspired by the book, and sell it to a streaming service, support derivative projects from the community.
Now, okay, let's parse this a little bit, because the very first thing that they have planned here, make the book public to the extent permitted by law. There's a couple of things there. One, you have this thing called copyright.
Yes.
And buying a book does not give you, unless the contract for the sale stipulates this, just buying the book does not give you the rights creatively or any kind of ownership of the copyright or any of the material inside this book. All of the artwork by Darwin Cook belongs to DC, but it's Darwin Cook's work. Right. And this book is a collection of material, and it's copyrighted. I don't even know who would own the copyright at this point, because so many people have been involved, and the rights have transferred back and forth, all this stuff, because of the Herbert. Somebody from the Herbert estate maybe would have this.
So this is complicated by the fact that Jodorowsky is still alive, so he's got a stake in this too, because he created the content.
Right.
And so he does no longer has the rights to the Dune series to adapt it. So this is both it's a very complicated copyright situation. Right. But like you said, buying a book doesn't give you the right to do anything with it except from enjoy the book.
Yeah,
Making the book public.
You can't. I mean,
Yeah.
other than the fact that you don't own the copyright to it, there are already, well, there have been. We were talking about it before the show started. That it's disappeared offline, but there are already scans of the entire book that were out there in the Ethernet out for people to find, and you could go through and you could look through the entire book, and you don't have to own it. You don't have to buy a copy of it, because there's only like 10 of them.
Questionably legal because,
yeah,
again, you know, if you go and buy, you know, any comic book and scan it and put it online.
If I scanned all of this and put it on our website, I would be in violation of copyright, and you would
likely get a cease and desist, take it down, and potentially a letter from a lawyer.
Yeah.
So there's some complications with Plan 1, right?
Right.
With Line 1, but it's qualified to the extent permitted by law. So the answer to that is not at all.
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
Number 2, produce an original animated limited series inspired by the book and sell it to a streaming service. Okay, 1, that assumes that you make something that's good enough for the streaming services to even be interested in, and especially now in the economy that we have, given the fact that all of the streaming services are, you know, trimming back the fat, as it were, and firing people and not spending as much. And you got Warner Brothers.
January, so
that's true. That's true.
They could have had a different idea, but
animated pictures cost a lot of money.
We'll get to talking about some of the money details here in a bit, but because they're interesting,
right?
And this is backwards, by the way. Produce the series and then sell it to the streaming service. Okay, folks, that's a great idea, and there's arguments to be made to have the content you want to create in hand if you're going to sell it. Crowdfunding folks run into this all the time. They're going to sell. They say, give me money so I can make the thing, and then the thing doesn't get made. And the folks who have supported whatever it is, and you see it's been going on as long as there's been crowdfunding.
Right.
There have been, I mean, whether it's a novel or a comic book or a gadget or an album or something, there have been plenty of cases where folks have sat there and went, "We're going to make this thing," and you're like, "I'm going to give you $50," and then you never see the thing. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
There are risks involved in crowdfunding. I want to interrupt here real quick. Robert's saying that he thinks he might have COVID. Robert, if you do, or if you don't, we hope you feel better soon.
Exactly.
That's no fun.
Do feel better. I have one of my coworkers currently has it, and she is dealing with she can't taste anything stage of things.
Yeah.
And it's really she and her husband love to cook, and so she's just like, I can't taste any of this. And that's no fun to try and eat when you can't taste the food.
Yeah.
So hopefully you don't, or if you do, we hope you can recover quickly.
Question from MS: could they argue that Jodorowsky's vision is a separate vision from Herbert's Dune and do this? It's a good question.
So this was actually one of the arguments put forth. So what happened? Yeah. Let's talk about the third one real quick, and then we'll talk about the fallout from this one tweet. All right. Support derivative projects from the community. What that means is that the community of this DAO, this Spice DAO, and we'll talk about DAOs in a minute. Everybody would have these, their short version. They are a group. It's a bottom up.
It's like an
decision
investment
structure.
Group. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
and so everybody has a vote, and so the community would help come up with ideas for derivative projects. Well, the problem with derivative projects is the same C1 and 2, is that here's an example that a lot of folks will get, I think. If you create a comic book character for DC or Marvel that is a spin-off of an existing character,
right?
most of the time that character automatically becomes the property of is already already the property of DC. It's not you might have created the character, but you don't have the rights to the character because it's a derivative of
a classic example of that.
Character.
A classic example of that is She-Hulk, because Universal Television was doing the TV show with Bill Bixby. And I saw an interview one time with Stan Lee, and they were saying Universal was really happy with what they were doing with the TV show. And there was a rumor that they had been thinking about doing a spinoff with a female version of the character. And Marvel said, oh, crap, we better come up with it first. Because if Universal had done She-Hulk first, then Universal would have owned it.
Right.
Because it's a derivative work, but the way the rights were all parceled out, and this is back when Marvel was not doing too well financially. But if they had come up with She-Hulk, they would have owned at least a piece of her in perpetuity until they sold it. So the Marvel guys sat there and said, well, we better come up with She-Hulk first so we'd own the character. And that's where Savage She-Hulk came from, which became the Sensational She-Hulk, which now we get the She-Hulk TV show. Right. But that's the same kind of thing. That's what's considered a derivative work. So Superboy is a derivative work of Superman.
The Green Lantern Corps is derivative of the Hal Jordan Green Lantern, so therefore that entire group of characters.
X-23 is a derivative work from Wolverine.
Right. So and the downside for this is that you can see it blow up in the face of creators sometimes. You look at a whole bunch of different artists involved with Marvel and DC who have created characters who can't use those characters, or they are. Watchmen, of course, is a fantastic example, because there have been spin-off series of Watchmen that Alan Moore never wanted,
right,
and was vehemently against, and yet DC has the right, so they can do that, and DC owns the characters that created the. I mean, it can be very unfortunate on the creative side.
That whole thing is just such a swamp. To hear those stories, because DC done Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons dirty on that one.
Oh, they did, and even though they have made some minor, if you're just listening to the podcast, think millimeters between my fingertips, minor fig leaves. It's not anywhere. It will never be enough.
Yeah.
But Alan Moore is making movies now, so he's going to be okay.
I think so.
And he's still as grouchy as ever and having a good time with
it. These people, however, are not going to be okay.
Because this shows up, and suddenly they discover they're getting a lot of reaction. Now, what they're not getting is the reaction they were probably hoping for, which is that's fantastic. Where can I, how can I be a part of this? They got a lot of that.
Yeah.
They also got a lot of, that's not how any of this works responses. A lot of it coming from lawyers on Twitter who were very clear going, okay, that's not how copyright works. And none of these things are going to happen because you are Warner Brothers, who currently owns the right to Dune, is going to sue you so far into the ground.
Yeah.
And as far as I can tell, I have not actually seen that Warner Brothers has done anything. I think their legal department sat there and went, no, I want to watch.
Right. They're just sitting back and laughing.
Because they don't even have to spend any money to watch this whole thing.
It's like there's a the meme that has all of the presidents in the room laughing together, or that group of people in the office where they're all laughing, and you could even put the thing in there, and then they said they'd make a cartoon out of it, and you see this, but the copyright doesn't work that way. If you are going to do any kind of an adaptation, you have to either do something that's in the public domain, like we did with the Statement of Randolph Carter, and make sure that all the copyrights are clear. Because once it gets past a certain amount of time, the copyrights lapse and it's anybody. That's why we're getting Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. It's
Right.
because the copyrights have lapsed. So it's now in the public domain. The first 5 books of the Barsoom series from Edgar Rice Burroughs are in the public domain. So anybody could go out and make a John Carter movie.
Well, it's like
Technically.
there's a reason you get King Arthur stories and Sherlock Holmes stories is because, well, okay, so Sherlock Holmes is an interesting case because not all of Sherlock Holmes's work is in the public domain yet.
Yeah. Well,
some of it is, some
Barsoom's
of
the
it
same
isn't.
way. Yeah. Well, and that's what they ran
there's
into.
Some lawsuits involved with that, with adaptations going, you're adapting part of this. I think I want to say that
the Enola Holmes
Elementary ran into a problem.
Yeah,
and Enola Holmes ran into some problem too.
Because they say you're using some later aspects of Sherlock that are still under copyright. He didn't act that way in the earliest stories. You can't use that yet.
Which is,
I mean, you're
it's some hair splitting there, but I mean, but that's just it. You're correct. You are protecting your intellectual copyright. That is what your legal team is supposed to do.
Right.
That's why you pay them to do that. The folks over at the Spice now could have consulted a lawyer for about $200 prior to making their 2.66 million euro purchase, and discovered that this tweet, everything about it is wrong.
Yeah.
And they did not.
They're learning, though. I mean,
so the internet comes out basically, and there's I've talked about it before. There's that segment of Twitter which is colloquially referred to as law Twitter.
Right.
And this was a whole bunch of lawyers going, wait, what? And you could find long threads from copyright lawyers going, let me explain.
Yeah.
Why this is not a thing that can happen. And they would sit there and quote, the relevant law and the statute, all the different things, and they would sit there and go, okay, here's what happens if they live in Europe, here's what happens if they live in the US, here's the problems caused by it being a DAO because you have people who live in other places. I mean, there's so many different legal parts of this that were just working against these folks.
Yeah.
But they don't stop there.
Well,
so,
they come back. I guess this is in March, and they come back and they decide that they're going to make some NFTs or something out of it. If I understand the timeline right here, he's basically saying, okay, well, we're going to do this this new thing where we're going to make NFTs. So scan the book, make NFTs that people can buy, and raise $12 million and burn the book as a publicity stunt.
Right.
Like, wait a minute, why would you want to do that?
And this actually sparked an internal, because you could actually go to you could all right, so if you're not familiar with what a DAO is, like I said, it's sort of this collective group of people who have, again, it's bottom up, so it's voting by the organization. It doesn't have a central authority.
Yeah.
This is kind of the whole Web3 model. This is the whole thing, is that there's not a, it's kind of the wild west of the internet, right? Less rules, more individuality and things like that, which is great to a point, but it also has its drawbacks. And one of the things that you can find with this sort of thing is a majority vote in some of these cases can mean a whole lot of people are on the hook for a lot of money, or lose a lot of money, or basically become the subject, be sitting there pointing out that none of this stuff is legal, and be voted down because people get excited about the idea. And enough people can sit there and say, let's burn the book, that it becomes something that shows up online, and everyone sits there and goes,
wait, what?
Why would you do that?
I know, right? I mean, it's one of 10 existing copies. I've heard between 10 and 20, but majority of the time I've heard around 10 copies still exist. Mm-hmm. Why would you destroy this? I mean, at the very least, it's a historic artifact, and its value is such that, it's rare, and there's not that many of them, which makes it more valuable. And sure, it's not worth $3 million, but why would you burn it? And of course, everybody, there was the backlash, and there was, eventually they decided, well, no, we're not going to do that. And then the Dow comes apart. In this is July, where this report happens. No more Dune or Dow for the Dune Dow. Dow delusion was at its peak when the community went into this journey together, wrote Spice Dow founder Soban Soibi Sakib. Okay.
So this is the guy who did the purchase originally. He got into crypto and made a lot of money, like $25 million. He was doing very well, and he got into the NFT thing, and he sold NFTs, and this was a very profitable thing for him. And he's the one who funded the original purchase of this, and he quickly discovered there were some drawbacks. However,
imagine my surprise.
Well, yeah. So one of the things that a lot of folks who do deal with the NFT space and the crypto space seem to have missed is that even though this is sort of a very unregulated kind of cryptocurrency, that whole thing it's very low on regulations, it doesn't leave out the fact that you still have to pay taxes on this stuff.
Aha.
And there's a whole bunch of folks who made a lot of money in crypto who suddenly discovered that when the bottom has been falling out of crypto for the last month and a half, they still have to pay the taxes on the money that profits they made. And this is a problem when suddenly you don't have that money anymore.
Well, okay, check me on this, because my understanding, not necessarily of crypto, but my understanding as it comes to investments, and this just comes from mainly our money additions on Live from the Bunker, because I talk to Dan and Matt, and we talk about this stuff. And my understanding is that when you have to pay taxes, it is on the actual profits realized. So if, let's say you buy a stock, let's say you buy Warner Brothers Discovery, and it's it's $15 a share right now, and you go 3 months and it goes up to $20 a share, where you've gained $5 a share in profit. Now, if you sell that at $20 a share, then you have to pay taxes on that money because you've made a transaction and now you have income. But if you take that stock and you keep it, and it goes up to 20, and then it goes up to 25, and then it drops down to 12, for example, you're not paying taxes on the $25 stock because you haven't sold it yet. You're only paying the taxes on the money that you realize after you make a sale.
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I mean, that's,
but a lot of these folks. So if you were looking at last year's crypto highs, and you sold, you still have to pay taxes on that money.
Right.
But if there's one thing that we've seen since pretty much the beginning of this year, is that crypto has been doing this.
Yes.
And doing it rather dramatically. So much so that people are like, if it falls below this amount, it's gonna it's fallen below that amount. Okay, if it falls below this amount, oh wait, it's and there've been there's again, the Web3 is going great thing. You can see all these various exchanges and things like that have just gone belly up, and there's a lot of fraud going on there right now, which has not helped. So if you've got money in this right now, I would seriously. I am not a legal advisor. I am not a financial advisor. I would say be careful and do your diligence too. You can write off your losses unless you've already owed the taxes on that.
Yeah.
So Yeah, there's all kinds. It is a mess, and unregulation has its pros and cons. This would be one of the cons. So
the
yeah,
Dow,
so
the Dow
Sobe
falls apart.
wants to get out of this.
Yeah.
Because this has turned into a job, and the coolness of owning this book, which he got the Spice DAO to buy off him for, I think, a loss.
Okay.
I think he ended up coming in a little bit under. So then there's this whole backtracking just a bit. Once they were told that they basically couldn't do any of this stuff because of copyright, they're like, well, we'll contact the relevant people, and they'll see how excited everyone is.
Mm-hmm.
And they will figure out some way to work this stuff out. And no, that did not happen. Pretty sure that none of the relevant people were willing to take these guys' calls or emails or any of that, because there's no benefit to them doing that. So people are starting to ask questions within this group.
I actually have a tough time imagining that these guys would have the resources to find the relevant people to contact at Herbert's estate or Warner Brothers or
but the thing is that somehow along the way, they in the not too distant past, somehow connected with Frank Herbert. No, I'm sorry, not with Frank Herbert. I said Frank Herbert. Frank Miller. That Frank Miller.
Yeah.
To do some NFT project together. Now, why Frank Miller would want to do this, I don't know. But apparently they had some profile pic NFT thing going with Frank Miller. This is after they had because after they finally realized that none of these things were going to happen, that they were all excited about, they decided to have a screenwriting competition. Okay, so we can't do the Dune thing, so let's make our own movie. Sure. Come on, kids, let's put on a show.
Right.
So that script leaks. Several of the scripts that are suggested leak onto the internet. It may surprise you to know that most of them are not good.
I'm shocked. This is my
like
shock
very
phase.
bad. And the one that is selected, which I think they paid them $20,000 for, or something like that. Because we're talking folks who. So basically, another thing about DAOs is that you buy into this, right?
Right.
So you give X, take X amount of your crypto dollars, and you buy a specific type of crypto coin that's tied to the DAO. So this would be the Spice that they're calling it their Spice. Shockingly, right?
Right.
So people have invested a lot of money into this. They have a fair amount of money lurking about in there, and so they're going to spend this money, right? So the script they buy, this is the winner, leaks. It's I was reminded of Krull, and I have a certain fondness for Krull because of when it came out and how old I was, and some of the visuals are cool. But Krull does not have. Well, okay, Krull has a storyline.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm kind of reminded about, but it's like an edgy Krull, which I'm like, do we need an edgy Krull?
And funnily enough, as a side story to that, I'm watching Deep Space Nine. I'm watching it all the way through again, and I watched Krull. And I thought, I wonder whatever happened to that guy. So the guy who played the lead in Krull, Kenneth Marshall.
Yeah.
And I look on his IMDb, and it says it's got Deep Space Nine listed in his credits. I'm like, what? He plays the security officer, Commander Eddington. The balding.
It is that guy.
It is that guy. The guy with the receding hairline, who ends up shifting over to the Maquis. It's Kenneth Marshall. Like, wait a minute, Wait, what?
It is. I can see.
Yeah.
I can see their faces
Marshall.
side by side in my head.
Ken Marshall.
Oh my god, that's wild.
And I'm like, oh, that's where he ended up. That's kind of cool. Boy, he got older.
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, they all did. We all have.
Yeah, no question.
Yes.
Okay, so here's where this really ridiculous story takes a dark turn. So this is all of this is nonsense, right? This is
Right.
complete and utter, everything from vastly overpaying for a cool collectible, vastly misunderstanding what you can do with that thing, becoming a laughing stock of, I mean, every print story that ran from this, and every major news source, right? If it was not just Twitter or Facebook or whatever, if it was running on a news site, it was like, these people spent a lot of money to not be able to do the thing they say they want to do.
Yeah.
And there was whether it was the mockery was open, or it was just, this is not a thing that can be done. It was there. Turns out a driving force behind a lot of this was a member known as Fang, a member of the Romilia Collective. Well, the Romilia Collective turns out to have a bad history involving a suicide cult and the death of a 17-year-old boy from Montreal. There's a lot more to that story. It's dark. It's really unpleasant. This is not someone who I would have over for dinner, or want near anybody that I care about, just because they seem like an awful person. That's my opinion. Maybe they're lovely in real life.
Would that be a 10-episode cautionary tale, perhaps?
Be a serious cautionary tale.
Yeah.
There was initially this was, again, if you want to dig into this, folks, it's a dark story, but there was denied that they were who this person was, and then it turned out that they had ultimately admitted it. There's questions about this whole collective thing, but it's again, at the end of the day, a kid got swept up in it and he is dead, and so there's a lot of blowback for this thing anyway. So this guy turns out to be one of the people who's helping drive all of these projects over at Spice. This, of course, does not go over well for the people who don't want to be associated with this kind of person.
Yeah.
Suicide cults, not necessarily good for the PR. Now we're in vague territory.
Well, because at that point, because Fang leaves, there's no longer any chance of making any kind of an animated project or anything like this. Sobe has decided, okay, we can't do any of that because he's been told by the lawyers you can't do any of that. So now he's decided,
conversations that should have happened back in December.
Yeah. So now he's decided that he's going to make scans of the book to distribute to the DAO members, even though that's also a violation of copyright.
Yeah, I mean, it's fuzzy. It's a little bit fuzzier there, because as long as the problem is that if he had just owned the book and he made scans and he handed them out to his friends and didn't say anything about it,
it's still technically a violation of copyright.
It's still technically a violation, but it's also something that probably nobody would care about because no money would have exchanged hands. But these folks have all invested in this.
Yeah.
So you got the basic, you're essentially paying for you're paying for copyright infringement.
Yep.
And that's, yes.
Death Angels that you're talking about, the girl who played Chloe Sullivan, she's currently in federal prison, I think 3 years. But it's funny because I've been sort of kind of peripherally paying attention. Nikki Klein, who was on the reboot of Battlestar Galactica, she was one of the mechanics, and she has been very vocal about how that whole thing was spun off into a narrative in the media that didn't actually play the way it actually played out. And I haven't really paid much attention to it, but it was one of these things where the media needed a villain, and this guy was that. However much he was culpable and what actually happened or anything like that, I don't know. I mean, I didn't follow the case. But apparently there are two sides to this, and the media played one side and didn't pay attention to the rest of
there's
it,
always
so.
two sides to this, and whether or not so
Yes, Allison Mack.
right.
Yeah.
So the answer to the question is how do people get caught up in them? The successful cults, the ones that really are become big and or even just really small but very effective and powerful, they make you feel special, and they have a really good ability, because they're run by people who are good at this, to prey upon the very human feelings of, whether it can be loss, it can be insecurity, it can be wanting to be loved, it can be they find the thing that you want, and that group is offering it to you. And it's love bombing is one of the things that they call it, and it's so they make you feel part of something special, and you are special, and that can be at various I think at all points. We've all had a point in our life where we're vulnerable to that.
Is this all that I am? Is there nothing more? And I think that the way we're made, made in God's image and all of that, but I think we're made to believe in something. We're made with a need to believe in something outside ourselves, something bigger than who we are. And I think a lot of these organizations, a lot of these cults and these people, these charismatic leaders, they find those people who are vulnerable because they haven't found something to believe in. They don't believe in themselves. They don't believe in God. They don't believe in whatever. And so it makes them more susceptible to, like what you're talking about, the love bombing. We're going to make you feel good about yourself.
Yeah,
and so they
find that
by
hole
extension,
in your life,
yeah,
and they sometimes they shape themselves to fit it.
Yeah.
And this is a whole other topic, but to me, the folks who are, because they often come in two flavors, right? And I'm oversimplifying, but there's the folks who are aware that it's a scam, where they're manipulating these people. They want the power, they want the adulation, they want your money, whatever it is. The folks at the top are, don't believe any of this stuff. They're just taking advantage of the people. And then there's something which I think is almost worse, because that's awful. But then there are the folks who actually believe this stuff, that they think that they are, the Messiah or Muad'Dib.
Yeah.
If you want to tie back into this.
The comet's coming to take us away.
Because those folks are more dangerous.
Yeah.
These folks just want your money. These folks probably want your life.
Yeah. And the comment from Death Angel says, sounds like a lot like multi-level marketing. I have actually been in multi-level marketing operations. In my experience, and this is completely anecdotal, I did not encounter anyone that struck me as predatory, because the way it was set up, the way everything was doing, everybody's success depended on everybody else's success. And so that, your higher up, your people at the higher levels that were making all of more money were doing so because the people in the lower levels were making money. So they have a vested interest in helping you make your money so they can make their money. So it was one of those things where I never got any kind of a sense that anybody was being taken advantage of. Now, not to say that doesn't happen,
right? But
it's a little bit different from the cult-like mentality, because the cult is emotional investment, spiritual investment. You're all in. Your every fiber of your being is this. Mm-hmm. Whereas with multi-level marketing, you're selling product, or you're recruiting people, you're making money. It's a money thing, rather than spiritual fulfillment thing. And I think there's a difference there in how it affects people.
Oh yeah, I would agree. And I also think it's important to recognize that a lot of the people who have been caught up in these cult-like behaviors are very intelligent themselves. They are not. These are not stupid people who are uneducated about this sort of thing happening. But that doesn't stop them from being capable of being manipulated into these situations. Tying this back around to crypto and this sort of thing, there are folks who view crypto and NFTs and all this stuff as kind of a multi-level marketing situation, and sometimes as a cult-like situation.
Yeah.
Because there are folks who are often the evidence of this not working, or working not the way that they expect it to, is often gone, oh no, it's going to be fine. It's like, well, it might be, but yeah. So that's a whole different thing. But story's not quite over. But wait,
there's more.
Because Sobe steps away, right?
Yeah.
While all of this is collapsing, they decide that they are going, and this is announced, by the way, because they have transitioned to having a governing board. They are no longer, strictly speaking, a DAO. They have a governing, a centralized internal organization at this point, which is making decisions that not everyone in the group is happy about. They decide that they announced that the Spice DAO is over and done. It's going to be converted to a private company that's going to be registered in the British Virgin Isles.
Yeah.
Anybody's alarms going off here?
Well, now everybody has the option of converting their Spice tokens to Ethereum and get out.
Which, by the way, the Spice token has crashed so hard during this period that you're taking a loss.
Yeah.
And they're going to sell the Bible sometime in 2023. Now, remember what the Bible was originally priced at: 25 to 35,000 euros, and how much they paid for it. They are not. No one is going to give them 2.5 million euros for this book.
No.
They're taking a loss no matter what. Everyone is taking a bath on this. Now, we're not quite over yet. Because the guy who was basically making these announcements decides he's going to step down. This is all going back to Sobe.
Yeah.
So the guy who started the whole thing is now
back
in charge of the whole thing again. At the at the very beginning, he's the one who went out and bought this thing for a ridiculous amount of money, and here at the end, when all the money is gone, he's in charge again.
Yeah.
Now, this particular message that went out is there's some pretty serious shade. And if you read the language, it is a lot. This is not ending with handshakes and smiles and wishing you the best.
But what's funny is I look at this, and in this next to last paragraph, he says the DAO did achieve most of its goals. I was, oh, really? What goals did you not post the entire list when you got started? Were there secret goals we didn't know about? Because you didn't accomplish anything except make yourself a laughingstock.
Well, and the thing is that, I mean, if you are interested in crypto and NFTs and this whole Web3 thing, and you think this is something that has a future, this is not helping your case. This sort of just look. There's a term. I don't think much of this stuff. There are folks who do. They have the less than kind term crypto bro is out there for there's already this perception of so many of these people who are involved in this, that they are sort of blind to the realities of certain situations, that they fail to grasp that just because you say something is unregulated doesn't mean there aren't rules, and the consequences of actions taking place in this can still come back to bite you. There
Well,
seems to be this sort of obliviousness
and for
that
and that actually is the lead to this obituary in Esquire. I mean,
right.
Esquire magazine of all places. This is not, this is not Vox. It's not Kotaku or any of the usual suspects when it comes to this kind of thing. This is Esquire. And Adrian Westenfeld writing this, the first sentence in this article: if fear is the mind killer, then stupidity must be the pocketbook killer. I mean, right off the bat.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning is look at what this is.
I mean, there's been a lot of money spent on dumb things in the history of money.
Oh yeah, I've done my share.
Yeah, so have I. But I'm pleased to say that at no point in my life did I ever think that if I spent a lot of money on a thing, I now owned the rights to the thing.
Right?
And I mean, there's a certain amount of willful blindness. Again, you could pick up the yellow pages, as if there's such a thing. You could go online and go type in lawyer near me,
yeah,
and make a phone call and probably have a free consultation, if not, an hour long, whatever it is, and saved yourself almost $3 million.
I'm curious because I didn't see any mention anywhere in any of this news coverage, any of the media coverage, or the discussions online or anything. I wonder how old these people are.
So most of them are fairly young. Most of them in their 20s.
That tracks.
And while there are folks, all right, I'm 52 years old, so this is going to come with a certain amount of get off my lawn built in. All right, I am twice the age of a lot of these people, right?
Right.
But we've mentioned this before too. When you're young, when you're in your 20s, you're kind of an idiot. I mean, you might be really, really bright, but there's only so much life experience you have, and the longer you live, the more you learn from your mistakes, right? You make some of your biggest and ugliest mistakes when you're young.
See,
hopefully you move past them.
I'm hearing my words coming back to me. These are the things that I said to my 20-year-old before he stopped talking to me. Like, yes, you're very smart. You're very bright, but you
right.
don't know what you don't know. And yeah.
But then you compound it by the fact that these are people who are very young, who became very rich because of a single transaction.
Yeah.
And so there's the again, there's a wide range of people. There are folks who are doing the crypto and NFT thing, and they are being very smart and very clever. And like Robert says, there are a lot of millionaires, but there's also a lot of folks who used to be millionaires and are not millionaires anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's a very dangerous place to be in the market for this sort of thing right now. And I don't know if it's going to be, the problem is how long will this maintain? At
a guess, I would say it's likely to get worse as the recession continues. So
there's a lot of pros and cons to this, and if you can find a way to make it work for you, fantastic. But there are a lot of people who haven't. But we have seen, you hear stories all the time about folks who win the lottery. They've won 10 million, 20 million, $100 million, and a year later they're broke.
Yeah.
And and of course, these are folks who are in their 30s or 40s or 50s. In your 20s, do not give Tim Harvey $1 million when he's 24. Don't do it. It's a bad idea. And
I don't know that
relatively smart.
I guess 52-year-old Tim Harvey would know what to do with would be able to manage it a little bit better.
I actually do. I would sit there and I would know exactly how this money would get invested.
Yes.
And it would be so conservative when it comes to investment. It would be like, I'm going to get 5% over 2 years, done.
Yeah.
Whatever.
By the way,
give me 1% over here. Fine.
Yeah, Warner Brothers Discovery is at $14 right now.
Yeah, it's a good time to. I guess might be a good time to buy.
Consult with your tax attorney, your accountant. This does not constitute official financial advice.
Yeah, do not come.
Do not listen to Tim Harvey.
I've got an art degree, guys. Remember that.
Yeah.
Graphic design degree. I am not a legal advisor.
There's we put that disclaimer on all of our money talk editions. It's like, no, we're just talking here, folks. Oh
yeah,
my.
I think yeah, I mean, look, the potential for a lot of this stuff is, a lot of people think there's a lot there, and I personally don't, and that's fine. And they might make a lot more money than I'm ever going to make, and that's fine too. I'm also not going to lose that money.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay for me. But I'm sure that someone else will come along with some other thing where I mean, I'm still curious what's happening with this Frank Miller NFT thing with these guys, because as far as I can tell, is still happening.
Well, I saw, what was this? Well, he even mentions here, since the DAO did agree to the Frank Miller drop, I'll be finding a group to execute the sale. So apparently that's still going on somehow. The subsequent proceeds will go into the DAO treasury, which will be available to claim. So that sounds like a wash to me, but it sounds like something is still moving on that.
But there's been so much. The NFT market has really been damaged lately. I mean, I personally think NFTs are just dumb. But again, that's an opinion. You can disagree. Feel free. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. So the saga is over. Ish. But I guess the corpse is still kicking.
Yeah. Well, and interesting here, Robert says that BlackRock's investment software is opening up Bitcoin trading. It's $10 trillion of investor money that'll be able to be invested. That could create some issues.
I think. I mean, again, there's. I'm not saying all of this stuff is bad. I'm not saying that all of this stuff doesn't have potential to make a lot of people money. I am saying that there's been a whole lot of people who've lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And like any investment opportunity, do your research, consider the worst case scenario.
Yes. Due diligence. And those are the words.
Due diligence. It's a thing. So I hear. But yeah, and if someone comes along and wants to give you money so that they can buy a rare copy of a famous book, well. And Robert, yes, modern art is often done beyond the outsiders. NFTs are not modern art. Some of it can be modern art, and there's some artists who have made a lot of money on it. I'm not saying you can't make money on it.
Yeah.
Buyer beware.
Speaking of which,
risk exists.
Speaking of which, I have a thought that when we do the print magazine, one of the tiers will be to make the cover art available as a poster. So,
sure, that'd be cool.
And I told Mindy what the combination of elements is going to have to be. There's two options here. There's not going to be an NFT version of this. It's just going to be there's going to be a print version, right? All right. So one option is dinosaur, spaceship, astronauts, alien, fuzzy rabbit. The other option is you swap out the dinosaur for a dragon. So dinosaur has the spaceship in his teeth, and the astronauts are on the ground like, oh crap, dinosaur has our spaceship in his teeth. And these little fuzzy rabbits are going, what's going on? Right? So there's one. The other one is dragon is fighting spaceship. Pew, pew, flames, lasers, whatever. Little fuzzy rabbits going, oh, sparklies, what's going on?
Shiny. Yep. Uh-huh.
So one of those two. I don't know. We'll do something like that. That'll be the cover of the first print edition of our Starlog. Only we're not going to call it Starlog because we don't have the rights to Starlog. Wouldn't that be something?
And we also don't need to pay a lawyer to know that.
I know. But wouldn't that be something? Wouldn't that be so cool if we could get the rights to Starlog? And if they sat there and said, yeah, we're not going to do anything with it. Go ahead. You know, pay us $1. You know, do the Stephen King deal. Whatever.
That would be lovely.
They don't care about Starlog.
I'd also like to be taller, younger, and prettier, but that's not happening either.
Well, they do make platform shoes. So
that's
you
true.
Could
There are, you know, and I have yet to explore the joys of Botox. So
Botox,
things that are not happening.
Hair plugs. You know, you could look younger.
I could make a serious effort that I'm not going to make.
All right. All right, we will leave it.
I'm trying to age gracefully over here.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, and as we do that, we creep closer to 10 years doing this show. So we'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Galaxy Log. That's not a bad title. Yeah, we gotta figure out what we're gonna do with that. All right. In the meantime, a programming note. Usually the Ranker Pit is on Tuesday nights. This week it's going to be on Thursday. The reason for that is because the Walt Disney Company's earnings call is Wednesday. So we're going to wait for that and then see what comes out of that, and then that will give us fodder for discussion on Thursday. So we'll be talking on
Do you
Thursday,
think it's going to match up to what came out of the Warner Brothers call? I mean,
given the fact that Hollywood hates both David Zaslav and Bob Chapek, I think we'll get something similar. Yeah. Because I think they're both ready to start swinging an axe. Zaslav started to. I think Chapek's not quite as far along because he's had more fights internally that he's had to deal with. But so now that he's got that 3-year contract from a unanimous vote from the board, I expect Chapek to start cleaning up a lot of places too, just like Zaslav's doing. And you can be sure that they're comparing notes. Can you believe this town? Yeah. All right, we'll leave it there and do this all again next week. I got a list. We got some notes. It's different topics.
We do.
So we're gonna talk different things. Oh, by the way, we got called out.
Yes, we did.
I meant to start the show this week with this, but I forgot. We got called out for last week's episode, not including Barnard Cribbins.
Right.
And the more I thought about it, because I'd responded back, I said, we did report on his death on Good Morning Multiverse. The more I thought about it, the more I thought, you could justify leaving him out of that particular discussion that we had last week for Nichelle Nichols and David Warner, because Cribbins didn't have as much of a track record in genre. He did Doctor Who. He did Daleks' Invasion of Earth. He didn't do science fiction fantasy stuff. He had the children's show that he narrated, but other than that, he didn't really do anything. He was mostly comedy. So I think we're okay not including him. I mean, not in meaning any disrespect to him, but with us focusing on Nichelle and David Warner both having so much of a career in genre. I think we did okay. But I just wanted to address that.
We should have mentioned it, if nothing else, just to be thorough as we're talking about those two as well. So I think if it's fair calling us out, and I think you're also quite right, Jason. So
all right, that's it for us. Thanks very much, folks, for being here. Don't forget. We do have a number of different places online where you can connect with us on social media and video channels. And we've got the tip jar and the subscribe star in case you want to throw us some coinage to help us prepare for our print edition. We've got some ideas. I think I'm actually thinking we're going to do this. Maybe. We'll see.
All
right. Thanks very much, everybody in the chat. Good to have you all here. Don't forget, Sci-Fi for Me TV.2. Go find that channel and subscribe there. We've got 15 over there now. That's the experiment. We're going to see. And I did get a newsletter out today. I'm very proud of myself. So, all right. We're done. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Copyright 2022 by Flaming Dog Media, LLC. All rights reserved. No portion of this program may be retransmitted without the express written consent of Flaming Dog Media. You're watching Sci-Fi for Me TV, delivering the multiverse since 2009.